Right, what on earth am I doing out here? I'm on a cliff, precariously perched, so I'll try and stay on this cliff and not fall off. And it's a little bit windy, so apologies for any wind noise. I will try and deal with that in post. So why am I on here? I'm looking at, and I'll turn the headlamp on just momentarily, I'm looking at something new from Nextorch. They sent this to me, they said, Trail Trek, have a look at this. So this video is my initial thoughts, these are my honest thoughts. They didn't tell me what to put in this video. I don't work for Nextorch, I've never worked for Nextorch, haven't received any money, and these will be my honest thoughts. And they won't get to see this video until it's released. So this is a new one from Nextorch. Now, if you remember, I looked at one of their, I think it was the E-Star, very impressed with that, and they had like a tactical, was it the TA70? Really like that. And again, the quality and build of this is brilliant. Look at that, a huge, massive bowl with an, I'm going to say an emitter down the bottom. I'm not going to tell you which emitter that is, but look how interesting that is. It's got like a copper thing around it. If I can get that to focus, which I can't. And it does have those little ceramic nano bead things. It's got one there, one there, and one there, so three. And it is a smooth parabolic reflector, so trying to go for distance, and has a huge bowl on the end there. I'm doing this one-handed, so I'm not going to show you just now because these are my initial thoughts, but that unscrews and lifts up, and there is a Type-C to charge this. Now, you can take the cell out, so it is a 21700 and it is 5100 milliamp hours, so plenty of capacity on there. I believe it is a flat top, and I don't think it is protected, but there will be protection in here on the charging circuit. It even has battery levels, so watch if I momentarily hit this, watch these LEDs here, there, you see that? Well, you can't actually, so let me turn the headlamp out. Right, now you'll see it. So if I press this momentarily, there, see that? You can get a battery level, so you've got 4 there, so 4 is 100%, then 375, then 250, and so on. So turn that back on, so you can see. And I believe this has a magnetic base, I think, but I will check that. The full review, obviously, up when I've had time. It just has 2 buttons, dead simple. You have your main button, and then you can immediately get the strobe. I'll show you that momentarily, so if you are photosensitive, be aware, I'm just about to show that now. So I'll turn the headlamp out. So strobe coming up, you have been warned. So you can just immediately go to it from off. There's your strobe. So you can immediately go to that and then turn it off. Right, headlamp back on. So very impressed so far. It's large though, so is this pocketable? Just if you've got it popping out the top, and you can see there, that's where your USB is. It's under there, Type-C. I love it when it's O-ringed and threaded away. It means it gives you good waterproofing. Although having said that, strangely, this is IPX7, not IPX8. I don't understand that, so I'm going to probably go back to them and have a good look at that. And this will get hot when it is running. It is 2200 lumens maximum, so that's the maximum output you're going to get of that. So turn this out because it's starting to get boring, and it only has a 1 meter drop rate, and I think that's because of the large bowl. So as I say, I'm at the coast here, so I can stretch out nicely. So let's go through the modes, and typical Nextorch stuff, even though the quality is high, it does like a reverse on the modes. So if I turn this on, and I'll do that now, and we'll go through the modes, so they go like that. Oops, there you go, and then momentary, so high, medium, low. So low is 40 lumens. So you can see it on the grass here. We'll come back a little bit. Decent, I would say that's a mid-tier, mid-range in the Kelvin values on the tint there. It's kind of neutral. It's not warm and it's not cool. So I would say it is neutral, but I'll try and get more information on that. I'll give you the Kelvin value and even the CRI in my full review. So pretty decent. So they're saying you get a massive, something like 85 hours you get on that. These are their figures, not mine, but that's decent. I could technically hike with that, although generally I wouldn't use something like this because you have that hot spot and then the spill. But look, there's my foot. I'd want it to stretch out a bit wider. This is generally made for push, although you have that immediate strobe. So if I come down here, look, it's hardly reaching. You can see it there. I've done this in 4K HDR. It's 10-bit color rendering, and I'm using quite a sensitive pickup here, so you should be able to see that beam. I can see it on the screen there. So that's 40 lumens, so you get a massive runtime on this huge cell. So the next one, if I go to the next one, right, maximum, right, that's its medium. So there's medium. You can see already, look, if I pull down here, not very wide spill on there, is it? But we'll turn around, look, on some grass. Not very wide spill at all. I'll do a slow 360. There, on various surfaces there. So 400 I believe is it 430 lumens, I think, is their quote. And I will give the run times on the full review. But look, it's already pushing out. It's already reaching the waves there. So that is I'll go over all the distances and I'll measure this all out in the full review. But look how fat. Well, I was going to say look how fat. Look how thin that beam is. Very, very punchy. Look, I can at that range I can no longer see any spill. Look. And there's a sandstone stack here which I sometimes use for testing. You see that there lighting up? Should be in the middle there, right now, there. So it's reaching that no problem, and that is only at 430 lumens, so very impressive. So if we go to its highest, it should go over the other side of the bay. So here comes high now, the 2,200 lumens, and they're saying you get 3 hours on this cell. Bang, look at that. Very, very punchy. I'll move the beam around so you can see it there. Can you see it now? You can see, and you'll see those particles in the air. I am at the beach, so what that means is there is a lot of moisture in the air, but that allows you to see the beam and how it interacts with the air. So very, very, very punchy, but I guess that's what it's designed for. And if we look over at the other side of the bay, yeah, it is actually reaching the other side of the bay, no problem whatsoever. I think there might be a fisherman over there, so and you see him flashing on the hill there, so I don't want to annoy him. But look at that. Very, very impressive. Like I say, this is a neutral tint in my eyes, but 3 hours on that, very impressive. Very, very good. So anyway, I've waffled on enough about this. You want to calibrate this with some other lights that I'm testing. So I turn that out and put it in my back pocket and try not to burn my trousers. Some of the other lights that I'm testing it with, and I will show you. Here is one of them. This is the Brynite, and it is the PT18. Sometimes that's the Pro version, sometimes known as the Oathkeeper. Smooth reflector, not as big, and this is an 18650, so smaller cell, although it is still quite bulky and heavy, but it's more of a tactical light. It does have the 2 buttons here, so you have a mode selector and a main. So we'll turn out the headlamp, and then we'll put that on now. Boom. I believe that might be its lowest. Now look how that's not as punchy. I would say that spreads out way more. So that's its lowest there, medium, high, and I think that's its highest, yeah. So that's its highest. Big difference. Now if we shine that at the stack, big difference there, isn't it? That is not trying to get, I would say by being tactical, this is more for mid-range. It's certainly not a push, and it's certainly not going over the other side, even though you can see it reflecting back, there's backscatter in the fragments in the air there, but it's just reaching the waves there. So very, very, very different. It's amazing how you can get 2 flashlights which appear the same on paper, and they're certainly not. Both smooth reflectors, both single emitter, single cell. We'll turn that out. Boom, very impressive on that one. Although in comparison, it is certainly not throwing as much, is it? So I'm also testing it against, and I'll turn this back on. There you go. I'm testing it against, it is so firm, so it is Type-C rechargeable. Flat bottom, no button on there, just a side button. This is the IF22A. Now this is a solid piece reflector, so rather than a bowl reflector, this is a TIR, so it's a solid piece of plastic. Although having said that, it does give you a nice spill and a throw, so watch this. So we'll go through the modes here, so turn it on. Now that is its lowest, so I can just see that. Now again, all these lights are around 2000. I think one of them is 1800, but they're all generally around 2000. So I think this is a fair test. And again, this is a 21700, so same cell. So again, this is the lowest. So coming along here, pretty decent. And then we'll go up. We'll slowly go up the levels, and I'll try and reach that stack or the other side of the bay here. So go like that, and then you hold it down. And I believe you can double press. Yes, look at that. Very punchy, even though that is not a smooth reflector. Now, does it reach the other side of the bay? Yeah, I would say just, but it's not as punchy. It is punchy, but not as punchy. But look at the ground, watch. Look at the spill. Bear in mind, that is in the middle of the frame here, look. Even if I do that, you can still see it the left and right. So, miraculously, even though this is what I would class as a thrower, that spill is usable for hiking. It's bizarre. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get a nice throw there with a hot spot, but obviously up close, very intense hot spot. Very, very, very localized. But pretty decent, and I'll show you on the bay here. I'll do a slow circle. Like I say, I've done this at the highest quality I can get away with, because obviously at night bitrate comes into play. I'll try and keep it as high as possible, but then YouTube comes along and ruins it with compression. So you can see it right down to the rocks there. Pretty decent. And if we turn that out, boom, and then put that in there. Right, so that was the IF22A. There is also, with the same cell, the big brother of that. Watch this. Looks the same, but look, a TIR, but look at the size of that, massive. I don't even think I bothered reviewing this on the channel. This is going to give you more throw because of that physical size, but same cell, and you can pull that up and charge it Type-C, and it does have a dual button setup, whereas the other one had just a side button. So let's try that now. Turn that out. So this is the larger one. This is, I should have showed you the name of it, would help. This is the Sofern SF26. But look at the size of that. humongous. So again, would you put that in your pocket? Well, you could have the same argument with the flashlight that we're looking at. So they both have that issue. So let's turn this off. Boom, right, that's its lowest. You probably can't see that. I can just see that there. You can just see it in the middle. That is its lowest. So we'll ramp that up. Go to the next one. It's already starting to reach that stack, but you can just see it there. You see it in the middle. And then the next one. Already, look how punchy that is. But it does the same thing as the 17. You have that spill and the punch, so it's kind of the best of both worlds. Now bear with me 2 seconds. I just need to turn this out because I've got a moth attacking me. Right, that's got that. So we'll go back. And then we'll go, and then there's its lowest. So we'll go through them again. And that's its highest. Very punchy, very impressive. And we'll do a slow, but because of the back scatter here, you can hardly tell. It is reaching the B on the other side, but you can hardly tell. And we'll look at the waves there. That's a good indication. If you can see the breakers, yes, you certainly can there. Very impressive. Let's look at it on the floor. So extremely intense, but then look, again, it's got that same thing where left to right you have a spill. I'll do a slow rotation here. So there's some bald grass and there's some normal grass and weeds. And we'll go down into this bay here. Look at that. Now, yeah, you can see the components in the air there. There's plenty back scatter, but very impressive for what it is. And bear in mind, you are saving space by not having to have this huge smooth reflector. So turn that out. Very impressive, but larger, like the light that we're looking at, I would argue. I'm also testing it with something that never gets enough love. This is something quite old, but this is the Convoy S11. So look that up. As I did a review on this. I love the tint on this. Watch this. Now bear in mind, small reflector there, and it is orange peel. Can you see it has a texture to it? So it's way more diffuse. You're not going to get the same punch, but you get a lot of power from this. And the cell this uses is a 26650. So let's turn that on. I believe that to be its lowest. In fact, let me just check I've done this properly. Yes, I have. Right. Okay, so there it is on its lowest. You probably can't see that, but you'll see it on the ground. Look at that tint. I think that's beautiful. That's heading towards the warm end of the spectrum. And then we'll go to the next level. Already massive, but again, look, hard to differentiate the spot from the spill there because of the orange peel. It does an excellent job. If you want a diffuse beam, this is probably what you're after, but quite a bulky light, but the head isn't bulky. Go to the next one. And then I believe that's its highest. Let's double check, yeah. That's its highest. So look, because of that push out, it is reaching that stack, but it's spreading out so much. You're certainly not going to get the other side of that bay. No, I would say I can see it with my eyes, which is probably better than the sensor I'm using. I cannot see it reaching the other side. But down here, look, if you were trying to search an area, I think that's pretty good. Now manipulate the beam there so you can see how wide it is. And again, tint, neutral, heading towards the warm end of the spectrum there. It's probably about 4,000-ish, I would guess. And let's look at that close up on its maximum. And it's dealing well with the heat as well. It's not heating up too badly. Very impressive. Let's turn that out. And then one more that I am checking it with, and then we'll go back to the light I'm supposed to be looking at. I'm testing it with a Brynite. This is the Brynite PT. I think this is is it the 18 or the 16? Let me just double check here. 16. So similar to the Oathkeeper there. Smooth bowl, looks very similar, but 21700, and it does have the 2 buttons. So let's have a quick look at that. So headlamp out, and we'll get that turned on. Right. Boom. Let's go through the modes here. So low, that's its absolute lowest. You can still see the beam there though. And we'll ramp that up slowly. Right, that's its highest. There it's reaching that stack there, you see. No problem. Looking at the tint there, can you see how that's quite white? I would say that's heading towards, obviously it's definitely in comparison to what we've just looked at, very white. But look at the beam, how it's picking up the particles in the air there. Very punchy this, very, very punchy. But I'm not sure if this is 1800 or 2000, but they're all around the 2000-ish range. And once you get up towards 2000, small differences like a couple of hundred become less apparent, I would argue. Pretty good. And that looks just as punchy. But then white tints tend to look brighter, in my personal opinion. Very impressive. Let's look at that on the floor. Bear in mind this is at maximum, so you've got that intense beam there. Right, let's go back to what we're supposed to be having a look at, and I'll give you the specs. I'll give you the blow-by-blow. Let me have a look. Right, so here it is, Nextorch, and it is the P82C. You can see there. It does have battery check, and I'll turn the headlamp out and I'll show you from the light. It does have battery check, which I like. It does have the Type-C behind a section, which means you can charge it, and it retains some waterproofing, so you can submerge this in water. There it is, powering out there. Low, medium, high. So we'll go through them all. So it actually reverse, so that's its highest, medium, low. But there it is at its highest. Again, 3 hours on this, very impressive. Compare that what we just looked at. You can see there's a big difference in output and throughput because of that bowl. Very, very impressive. I'll give a slow rotation on these rocks. It's so intense, it's actually obscuring a lot of the detail. Apologies for the wind noise if you're picking that up, but it is very windy on top of this. I'm literally perched on top of a cliff trying not to fall off. Very impressive there. Look. You may not be able to tell, but that is a long distance away. Very long distance. I'll give you a slow rotation into the wind, unfortunately. So IPX7, 1 meter drop rating, 2,200 maximum lumen output, and they are saying 3 hours. That's their figures, not mine. I haven't done the full testing yet, but my full review will be up as soon as I've had this for a couple of weeks, and I want to do plenty more hikes with it and get out and do some other side-by-side range tests. But I'm going to have a lot of fun with this one. Put it this way, recently the last few Nextorch stuff I've looked at have really impressed me, and I've given them high marks. Workmanship brilliant. They give you nice warranties. Never have any problems. The cells are decent, they charge nicely. So I'm looking forward to doing the full review on this. If you have any questions, stick them down below and I will get to them as soon as I can. But as for me, I'm going to try and get down from this hill somehow and then do some more testing. Turn that out, pop, and good night.